Imagine a town gripped by an invisible force where hundreds of people, without reason or relief, dance themselves to death. No music, no celebration, just an uncontrollable, horrifying compulsion that turned life into a macabre performance. This isn't a dystopian novel, it's a terrifying true account from 1518, a historical anomaly so bizarre, so inexplicable, that it defies all logic and understanding. Welcome to the Dancing Plague of Strasbourg, a dark chapter in history that raises a chilling question. What can make an entire community dance itself into oblivion? To truly grasp the horror of what unfolded, we need to transport ourselves back to the summer of 1518, to the bustling German city of Strasbourg, part of the Holy Roman Empire. This wasn't some isolated rural hamlet. Strasbourg was a significant cultural and economic hub, a place of order and established society. Yet, beneath its seemingly stable veneer, a perfect storm of societal pressures was brewing. Famine had gripped the region for years, turning bellies hollow and futures bleak. Disease was rampant, fear an ever-present companion. Life expectancy was brutally short, and the specter of death, in countless forms, haunted the populace. The Catholic Church, while offering spiritual solace, also wielded immense power, and notions of divine retribution for perceived sins were deeply ingrained. It was into this crucible of hardship and superstition that the first tremors of the inexplicable would begin. Our story, or rather the nightmare, began rather innocuously with a single woman named Frau Troffea. On a sweltering July day, she stepped out of her humble home onto a narrow cobblestone street in Strasbourg. She wasn't seeking joy, she wasn't part of any festival. Reportedly, she simply started to dance, not a graceful waltz, not a celebratory jig, but a furious, uncontrolled flailing of limbs. Her movements were convulsive, almost violent, her face contorted in what witnesses described as a mix of agony and bizarre, unseeing determination. What started as an isolated oddity quickly spiraled. Day 1 turned into Day 2, then Day 3. Frau Troffea kept dancing, her body refusing to cease its frenetic activity, even as exhaustion gnawed at her, and her feet bled through her worn shoes. Sleep offered no reprieve. She would collapse, only to rise again and resume her relentless torment. This was no ordinary fit, no simple delusion. This was something far more sinister, something that seemed to possess her against her will. But the true horror wasn't just Frau Troffea's solitary suffering. It was the insidious, terrifying way her condition began to spread like a contagion of the soul. Within a week, the grotesque spectacle had drawn onlookers, and then, unnervingly, some of those onlookers joined in. 1, then 2, then 5 people found themselves compelled to dance alongside her, their bodies twisting and turning with the same frenetic, desperate energy. By the end of July, the number had swelled to over 30. Imagine the scene. A growing cluster of individuals day and night, swaying, jerking, and collapsing in the streets, a horrifying, silent disco of despair. Their faces were etched with strain, their eyes glazed over, yet their feet kept moving. They were dancing to a rhythm only they could hear, a phantom beat that was slowly but surely consuming them. The city authorities, initially baffled, were now deeply concerned. This wasn't just a public nuisance, it was a public health crisis waiting to explode. Doctors were called in, the wisest minds of the day, but their knowledge, rooted in ancient humoral theories, offered no explanation. They diagnosed it as a hot blood affliction, a natural disease caused by an imbalance in the body's humors. Their proposed cure? More dancing. Yes, you heard that right. They believed that if the afflicted could simply dance the hot blood out of their system, they would recover. In a move that beggars belief, they actually encouraged the dancers to continue, even constructing a large stage, opening 2 guild halls, and commissioning musicians to play loud, relentless music, hoping to aid the dancers in their supposed recovery. They were, in essence, pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. This decision, though well-intentioned by their limited understanding, proved catastrophic. The relentless music, the public stage, the sheer theatricality of it all only amplified the phenomenon. More people, drawn by the spectacle or perhaps by some unseen psychological trigger, started to dance. The numbers continued their terrifying ascent, doubling, then tripling. By August, it is estimated that somewhere between 200 and 400 people were caught in the grip of this inexplicable mania. The streets of Strasbourg were no longer bustling thoroughfares but a chaotic, swirling vortex of tortured bodies. The air filled not with the sounds of commerce, but with the shuffling of 1,000 weary feet, the ragged gasps of dancers, and the occasional heart-wrenching scream. The city authorities' desperate attempt to control the plague had inadvertently transformed it into an unstoppable citywide catastrophe. The spectacle became the horror, and the horror became the death sentence. Day after grueling day, the dancers continued their macabre ballet. Feet, raw and bloody, gave way to festering wounds. Muscles, pushed beyond all human tolerance, cramped and seized. Their bodies, deprived of rest, nutrition, and hydration, began to fail. Without proper sleep, the human mind rapidly deteriorates. Hallucinations, delirium, and a complete loss of touch with reality would have set in, further blurring the lines between conscious action and involuntary possession. They would collapse, only to be urged back to their feet by the relentless pressure of the public stage or by the unyielding internal compulsion. The sheer physicality of it was brutal. Imagine running a marathon, not for a few hours, but for days on end, without stopping, without rest, without food or water. The human heart, a marvel of endurance, has its limits. Exhaustion, dehydration, sustained muscular exertion, and ultimately heart attacks began to claim lives. The streets became a grim tableau of the living and the recently dead. Witnesses described seeing some dancers simply drop mid-step, their bodies giving out under the immense, unceasing strain. Others, in their delirium, may have caused fatal injuries as they stumbled and fell onto the hard ground or into the chaotic movements of their fellow sufferers. The stench of sweat, blood, and decaying flesh must have been unbearable. Strasbourg, a vibrant city, had become a living graveyard. Priests prayed frantically, exorcisms were attempted, but nothing worked. The dancing continued and the death toll mounted. Estimates suggest that at its peak, 15 people a day were dying from sheer exhaustion, from heart failure, from strokes, all brought on by the relentless involuntary movement. Families watched in helpless horror as their loved ones danced themselves literally to death, victims of a malady that defied all known explanations. The city's coffers, already strained, were further drained as they struggled to cope with the escalating crisis, providing food and water to the dying dancers and burying the mounting dead. The initial cure of more dancing was abandoned, replaced by a desperate, if equally futile, attempt to simply contain the phenomenon. They began to transport the remaining dancers to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, hoping divine intervention would succeed where medical science had failed, though many still succumbed on the journey or soon after arrival. By late August, almost miraculously, the plague began to wane, the dancing slowly petering out as abruptly as it began, leaving behind a devastated populace and a profound, unsettling mystery. The Dancing Plague of Strasbourg remains one of the most baffling and disturbing episodes in human history. To this day, no single definitive explanation has fully emerged. Was it ergotism, a poisoning caused by a fungus on rye leading to convulsions and hallucinations? While that could explain some symptoms, the communal, synchronized nature and its prolonged duration make it an imperfect fit. Was it a mass psychogenic illness, a form of communal hysteria fueled by extreme stress, famine, and religious fervor? This theory, while plausible, struggles to account for the sheer physical lethality. Could a combination of these factors have created a perfect storm, where psychological triggers in a deeply stressed population combined with environmental toxins, amplifying and solidifying the bizarre compulsion? We may never truly know the answer. What we do know is that hundreds of people, in a time not so far from our own, were caught in a horrifying, inexplicable dance with death. The Dancing Plague of Strasbourg stands as a chilling reminder of the fragility of the human mind, the power of collective suggestion, and the terrifying, often unfathomable ways our past can haunt us, leaving us to wonder what hidden forces still lie dormant, waiting for the perfect conditions to emerge and grip us in their inexplicable, deadly embrace. If you want more spine-chilling historical enigmas, explore the next video, which delves into the strange case of the sleepy sickness that vanished as suddenly as it appeared.